Good afternoon. My name is Mateusz Litewski. I'm coordinator of the Climate for Growth campaign. Here today with us in our live video debate is Mr. Esa Hyvärinen, the vice president of a major energy company and a specialist in energy and climate policy issues. And Esa has kindly joined us today for a 1 hour interactive debate to speak about the European EU economic situation with a focus on the EU climate policy with the European Commission announcements from yesterday and how these two play out and work together. The debate will last for about an hour. After my short introduction, I will hand over to our guest, who will just give a few opening remarks of his own, and then we will continue our debate. We invite all our followers and viewers to direct their questions and comments on Twitter using the hashtag Climate for Growth. The tweets will appear alongside the video, and as we speak, we will bring these tweets to our guest and ask him for responses. So following the exchange, we will wrap up. We will present some concluding remarks, and we will end there. The recording of this video, for those who may have missed it, will be available on our website for viewing after we're done here. So, not taking up any more time, I will hand over to our guest. Hello, hi.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
So, if you could start. Your thoughts on the topic, the EU climate policy and the EU economic recovery. How do you see this?
Thank you, Mateusz. Just before we went on live, we thought that we start by commenting on yesterday's package from Brussels when the Commission put forward its proposal for the EU target, climate and energy targets for 2030. As you may know, what the Commission was proposing was the 30% target for CO2 reduction compared to 1990, and non-binding EU level target for renewable energy, plus some new mechanism on emissions trading to balance the supply based on the demand side. There have been a lot of arguments why this was done, but I think that from my point of view, the most important argument was the one that was not said in loud, which was that the current set of policies is not that efficient. Why I say this is that currently we have targets that are and measures to promote the targets that are overlapping and watering down each other, and that has proven to be costly, unnecessarily costly. And in fact, the cost and prices have been one of the factors behind this Commission proposal. Last year in Brussels, it was impossible to discuss climate and energy without discussing energy prices, and especially in comparison with the US. Now if we compare the energy prices, and now I'm talking about electricity in particular, between the EU and US, we notice that the wholesale price of electricity, the price what the producers get when they sell electricity to the market, is more or less the same in Europe and in the US. So there is no difference. And the wholesale price is decreasing in Europe, in most countries. Where the difference is coming from, they are different decisions based on policy targets. The differences are coming from taxes, different fees and levies that are used to promote renewable energy sources and other energy policy targets, etc. And now this Commission's proposal is, the main thing is to streamline the policy focus, i.e. address this sector in this component in the energy prices where the difference is coming from. So I believe that this proposal that the Commission was putting forward yesterday is improving the efficiency of the European policies in meeting the climate and energy changes, and that I think is the most important aspect of the proposal.
Mm-hmm. These proposals have had mixed reviews, if you say. Obviously, the more environmentally conscious and advocates of ambition say it's not enough. Other stakeholders say that it goes too far. This is all at a time when Europe is just beginning to recover economically after several years of a difficult economic situation. How do you see these two as having an impact on each other? Will the pursuit of these targets help the recovery, or will the recovery actually slow down with the pursuit of these targets?
I think normally when both sides are equally unhappy, those who wanted higher targets and those who wanted lower targets, then it's normally the target is more or less on the right level. And I think that just commenting that the level of the CO2 reduction target, we have agreed a target for 2050 in the EU. And I guess that this 40% is more or less in line with that target. So it's up to the politicians to set the target. So, but it's in that regard, it's justifiable. What is the relation between the energy targets and economic growth or recovery? It's true that we start seeing some signs of growth, or let's put it that way, it's better than it used to be. And like I said here, the most important message of this target is that we have to cut the cost of implementing the policy measures, and streamlining the targets and the measures, we can do that. And in that regard, I think this is a positive message for the economy as well.
Okay, but as a vice president of a company present in many markets, you clearly see different progress and different perspectives from different countries. We spoke before we started about the fact that this new set of targets actually allows the different countries to cooperate in achieving the EU-wide targets. Can you comment on this?
Yeah. The whole idea of the emissions trading, where the efficiency of that measure is coming from, there are two aspects. It's neutral on technology. It does not matter how you reduce emissions, you find the cheapest ways. And it's neutral to geographical location. It does not matter where you reduce emissions. It's as long as you do in the EU level. Of course, that's a shortcoming as well, but that would be a shortcoming of any EU policy measure. Because if it was a tax or something else, it only would apply to the EU. Mm-hmm. And that goes without saying that it would be of big importance to have some kind of an international agreement. But nevertheless, I think that this kind of having technology neutral and neutral towards a geographical location, it helps achieving the targets with the lowest cost. And that's what we are after as well. We think that it's important to mitigate climate change, but it does not have to cost unnecessarily. We have to do it in the cheapest possible way. Well, and here we have in the emissions trading, it does not matter. We don't have a Finnish quota, or Swedish quota, or Polish quota, or for the emission reductions for those sectors that are covered by the emissions trading. So it does not matter where the emission reductions are taking place.
As long as the target.
As long as the EU target is met, and that gives efficiency, that gives dynamism for this measure. It's a little bit like if you are losing weight and you have two persons, and the one is weighing 150 kilos, and then the other one is 50 kilos, and you ask them both to reduce 10 kilos or something like that. It's not really fair. But then if you ask them both to lose 20 kilos and sort out how to divide that, that's probably illustrates the mechanism a little bit.
So from what you were saying, it might appear that what the EU Commission announced, it may actually support cooperation on climate policy issues between the member states, which has been difficult in the past years.
Hopefully, and that's the full idea of the emissions trading. And now, if we turn into the renewables targets, the biggest difference for the package for the current situation is that there is not a proposal to have binding member state level targets for renewable energy, but there is a target for EU level renewable energy target. And there the Commission is also looking forward for efficiency gains. With the same way that in the emissions trading, it does not matter where you build renewable energy. You find the best possible locations. You build solar where the sun is shining, you build wind where the wind is blowing, you build hydro where you have hydro, you build biomass close to the biomass sources. That brings efficiency. And that is a big challenge as well. If it has been difficult to cooperate in the field of environment, it has been even more difficult to cooperate in the area of renewable energy. Partly because all the countries have had legally binding national targets. Everybody has focused on their own country and meeting their own targets. They have not been focusing on the cooperation and trying to find most efficient solutions. We have too few examples of cooperation in the area of renewable energy in the EU.
So you anticipate that this might increase and this might actually bring some green growth, as some would call it.
Yeah, once again, I think the main thing with the package yesterday is that we have possibilities to achieve these targets with lower cost than today. Whether it really will be a stimulus for growth, that is a little bit a different thing. But we foresee that the costs of meeting these targets are lower compared to the current policy situation. And it is especially in the area of renewable energy where the possibilities are now open. And the Commission is really encouraging the member states to cooperate in the field of renewable energy. And there we can save costs. And that is, of course, good news.
Yes, clearly there are producers and suppliers and buyers for this technology within Europe. Many advocates of increased renewables have been saying that this is an opportunity for Europe to grow, to build its global position and to export this expertise and this technology. This hasn't worked quite as well in reality as in theory in some respects. I mean, other countries have also specialized in this, and Europe ended up buying quite a lot of renewable technology from abroad.
Yeah, I think the answer is yes and no. There are also good examples in the area of biomass or in the area of more traditional energy production, where Europe has been able to be in the lead globally. And then I suppose you are referring to the example of solar panels. I think the logic is, if you say that having tough targets or having a lot of support for some industry, it would automatically create prosperous industries. It's not that simple. If it was so easy, then we could develop whatever industry in Europe, just putting public money somewhere and finance it for a couple of years, and then the outcome would be a very prosperous, competitive industry. It's not that direct, but it might be that it's not enough, but it's still needed. Some kind of a stimulus, some kind of foreseeability, predictability of the future. Liquid biofuels is something that hopefully we in Europe will be able to develop and have globally competitive, both for transportation but also for other use.
We have a question from a Twitter user. He asks, is there a way to combine competitiveness of the EU's market with having the world's leading energy policy that supports climate? So combining competitiveness of the EU's market with the energy policy that supports climate, whether climate and competitiveness are at odds or whether they can cooperate.
I think here again, yes and no. It's clever. The thing is that what kind of policy measures we are going to have. We can have very bad policies and ruin the competitiveness. We can also have smart policies using market-based mechanisms, using the market dynamism if I simplify, we will have to be able to make the markets work so that the emission reductions are rewarded.
Mm-hmm.
This is not going to be solved by governments putting budget money
Mm-hmm.
somewhere, unless we are able to create market with demand. We will not be able to mitigate climate change.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no one simple answer. You can have bad policies, ruin your competitiveness. You can have good policies, not harming competitiveness, even supporting competitiveness. One of the key things in climate and energy policies is that these industries are the most capital-intensive industries in the world. So predictability becomes very, very important. So it does not happen like these machines that the quarter really is 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And the development is very fast. In
Mm-hmm.
energy, it takes much more time because it's so capital intensive. And predictability is one key element also in in energy and climate policy from the competitiveness point of view.
Mm-hmm. So basically what you're saying is that for the private sector to innovate and to generate this, it needs long-term planning and stable conditions that it can plan its 7-10, because
Yeah.
I mean, to build a power plant, it takes probably 7-10 years between planning, implementation, and opening it.
I think we are never going to have stable situation, but if it was predictable and if it was somehow consistent, that would be already a very, very good achievement. I'm not sure even if we wanted to have a very stable situation, because hey, where is all the fun then if everything is 100% predictable and stable? There is no development. But if we have predictability and certain systematic way of approaching things and certain logic, then it's already a good achievement.
Some countries in Europe are more stable economically. Some have suffered a lot more, and some have kind of been relatively unfazed, well, let's say, by the economic turmoil of the last few years. But from your perspective, judging by the different markets, do you see a lot of still potential for growth and innovation across the EU? Because we talked about this a little bit before. Some markets are already saturated, but some are still producing the potential.
I think that this economic downturn or recession, it has been a global one. Everybody has faced that. And the countries are in different phases. In the US, where the economy is, I think, developing the most positively at the moment, that's where it's all started from. So they are a little bit ahead from the others. But it's nevertheless true that economic development has not been the same in all the countries, and the situations are different. Now we have to divide with two things. It's in terms of energy consumption. It's fairly safe to say that total energy consumption is not increasing dramatically. But some forms of energy, there is still growth. Electricity is growing. I think electrification is going to proceed. But it means that electricity replaces some less efficient forms of energy, like electric vehicles is a good example. And then another thing is that technologies, new ways of producing electricity or energy, new ways of distributing and transmitting energy, be it electricity or other types of energy, new ways of using energy, electricity and other types of energy. There is a lot of potential for new innovation and new business as well. And
also for technologies for limiting the amount of emissions from the currently used models, increasing their efficiency. For example, there is a lot of discussion about CCS, whether that is a viable option or whether it isn't. But I mean, you mentioned the example of the United States. They use their their difficult situation to really invest, and thanks to their efforts, they're actually brought their energy prices down, and they're a net exporter now.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if it was really a result of determined policy actions that they have been able to press down energy prices in the US. I think the key word here is the shale gas.
Mm-hmm.
That has helped them, and especially the industries who are using gas as raw material.
Mm-hmm.
They enjoy competitive advantage at the moment, and it's also seen in the other energy prices. But like I said, I'm not sure whether it's a result of determined policy action,
or whether it just happened in a
they
convenient
found
time.
a way to exploit shale gas.
Mm-hmm. Well, shale gas was also on the agenda of
Mm-hmm.
the European Commission announcement yesterday. Well, Poland and the United Kingdom in particular have been quite strong supporters of their shale gas, given their estimates of this potential in these two markets. Do you think shale gas has a role to play in the EU-wide climate policy, or whether it will be limited to domestic situations for a few member states?
I think that gas or LNG, liquefied gas, will become a global product. And in that regard, if it's a global product and there's a global market, it's not limited to certain countries,
Mm-hmm.
countries only. I hope that, to be now honest, I have not read through all the documents from yesterday, but as far as I've understood, the paper on shale gas allows member states, on certain conditions,
Mm-hmm.
those member states who so wish, proceed with LNG.
I think it said that there won't be EU-wide regulations for shale gas.
Yeah, and we have examples to other directions. Some countries have forbidden exploration of
Mm-hmm.
shale gas in their territories, and some countries see more potential there. But if it becomes on the market, then it's a European market or even global market, and it will have an effect on globally. I think the biggest effect on US shale gas on Europe and EU has been last year's debate on energy prices and the impact of that debate on yesterday's package. So it has been a kind of an indirect impact on EU.
Mm-hmm.
There is no shale gas imported from the US so far
Mm-hmm.
to Europe.
Mm-hmm. We've also, coming from Poland, Poland's been quite unpopular with certain of its policies. However, if we look at, for example, the CO2 reductions over the last 20 years during a period of quite intensive GDP growth, examples like Poland and other countries in the EU show that there is a possibility to decouple growth from rising emissions, and to in fact by replacing and renovating and investing in infrastructure and increasing efficiency, to actually benefit from this and also bring benefits to the climate. Obviously, coming from the energy sector, you can probably say a bit more on this.
Yeah, of course there is a lot of potential to improve in efficiency, not only efficiency in production, but also efficiency of distributing and consuming electricity. And I think that especially this latter part is going to develop now in the future. Now we have been very much focusing on the production of energy.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of potential that, for example, IT technologies will allow in the consumption side, and that is going to be. I think that is going to be more. I almost said dynamic, but I mean that the more rapid, because then you combine something from the IT world to traditional energy world, and there the development cycles are completely different. Like I said, in the traditional energy side, it's very capital intensive. It requires long lead times. But in this IT world, everything is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So there we are going to see much more rapid development, smart use of energy.
Also, maybe more exchange of the energy surpluses, etc., between the different countries.
Yeah.
This has been for example, with gas between different member states, it's been difficult, and some have had too much, some have had too little.
Yeah.
So this might bring the prices down.
Infrastructure, developing infrastructure, and now cross-border infrastructure, be it then gas or electricity, it's a burdensome process.
Mm-hmm.
If it's difficult to build a power plant, it's normally even more difficult to build a transmission capacity, because there are so many people involved, and permitting process is not very smooth or fast in many countries. This is something that has been recognized also by the EU, and was it last year or year before last when they came up with this priority infrastructure project to speed up permitting and create cross-border transmission of energy. And I think that is the heart of the EU. Internal market is the heart of the EU.
Mm-hmm.
That's in the core. And for energy, and now especially electricity as well as gas, we need infrastructure. I mean, static infrastructure. If electricity could be transported by ferries or lorries, we would have had a global electricity market or fully functioning EU internal electricity market. But this is not the case. We need cables, and it's not that easy to build those cables.
Mm-hmm.
And right you are that infrastructure will have an effect on prices as well, because the infrastructure makes the market, relevant market, larger. And that means that there is more competition. And that means that there is also pressure on prices. There are more competitive prices in a larger market with more competition.
So we've talked about the potential, and we've kind of focused on the opportunities and how this can actually support the recovery. But the recovery is the touchy, difficult subject. There are many different parts. Do you see any actually constraints or threats to that the different member states and the EU as a whole recovery can actually bring onto the climate policy and actually miss the targets, perhaps?
Now we have been, if you talk about the current situation and the 2020 targets, it seems that the EU is going to meet them, and one explanation is the economic downturn.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the economic development have an impact on the targets, the level of or the achieving the targets, and for the future, and like where I started from, we need cleverer policies, less costly policies, and from that angle I see that these decisions that have been now taken, it's also going to be supportive for the economic development. Whether there is a threat from the economy side, I don't really strongly see that.
But you see a correlation between the economic...
yeah, of course, there is a direct correlation between the economic activity and, for example, emissions. That's physics.
I was also thinking bringing this the EU climate policy and the targets into a more global perspective, because we've just finished in Warsaw the COP19. We're on the way to Paris 2015. What role do you see Europe as playing in this? Because some support this, leading by example. Some accuse Europe of kind of selling its negotiating position before the negotiations even started. How do you see this?
I think it's self-evident that, and it comes also from the economic theory, that the measure to address an environmental problem should be as large as the problem is. And climate change is a global problem. So ideally we should have some kind of a global agreement. At the same time, it's equally clear that we are not going to have one measure globally that everybody would follow. Most likely we are going to have a mosaic of different actions But I certainly hope that we are going to have more coherence, and I hope that these regional systems, be it EU, Australia, China, America, they would have some kind of a link between each other, because that would bring also efficiency on achieving. The negotiation situation is of course difficult, and I'm not best expert in assessing that what is going to happen in Paris. Of course, the role of US is very important. China, I look more positively than in the past, because they have problems related to energy and environment locally. So there the consciousness on climate change and the role of energy sector is growing. And in fact, China is doing a lot. They have quite ambitious targets, and they are also piloting emissions trading inside China. So it's I'm an optimist by nature, and I think that this is something that we will achieve something. But like I said, it's that something is not going to be one paper that everybody signs that this is what we are going to do. It's going to be different papers that we are going to do this, and that way Europe is going to do this and that way. But hopefully there is a link between each other.
Well, clearly, especially with the emerging markets, China, India, South America, for the policy to be effective and to actually tackle the global issue, which is climate change and climatic problems, there has to be cooperation between the largest ones, and there also has to be some kind of mechanism to compensate the poorer countries who, for example, started late, for example, Africa or so. But at the same time, do you think that in this field and in helping the poorer countries not kind of grow, but also but do this in a more climate-friendly way, maybe this is an opportunity for Europe?
Yes, it is. I agree. So it's the old way of saying that you don't have to invent the wheel again. It has been already invented. So if the others can learn from the mistakes we have done, and I'm not meaning only Europe, but Western world in general has made, I think that is an opportunity that we should exploit.
So from your perspective, what would be the priorities? Do you agree with just the EU-wide greenhouse gas emission target, or some have been calling for, again, 3 targets like we've had with 2020?
I think that climate change mitigation is something that the world must do, and reducing emissions is cheaper than just adapt, and the sooner you start reducing emission, the cheaper it is. So if that is the prime focus, then it would be enough to have in the European level one fairly ambitious CO2 target, because that would support also the other targets, renewables and energy efficiency. And it would do it economically more efficiently than having this kind of partly or sometimes even fully overlapping targets, partly and fully overlapping measures that are watering down each other. So I think that focusing on the CO2 would be the best way forward. That means, and we discussed about the global context, there are industries that are in global competition, and of course they are worried about the impact, the cost impact of these policies. And I keep on coming back to this, that we have a responsibility to do these activities as cheaply as possible. That's number one. If on top of that there is some specific compensation needed for those who are suffering most and put in a very unfair situation, then we will have to deal with that separately. But if we try to fix the emissions trading so that it's only affecting energy production or electricity production, it's nevertheless only 20% of the emissions in the EU, so we are not going to meet the target. So we have to have a functioning mechanism and let that work, because that is bringing efficiency. And then if there is a need for compensation, that has to be designed separately.
Well, also the fact that the same measures and the same solutions will have different rates of efficiency and effectiveness in different countries. Something may be easier and cheaper to implement in one country than for example in another, where it might be a lot more cost intensive.
Yeah, that's why we have European measures, so it does not matter where you do it.
Well, I mean, this is a bit of a change, this announcement yesterday, and I think over the past 2 weeks or something, a lot of people have been wondering what the European Commission step is going to be. It seems to have kind of hit, like we said, the middle ground. When nobody's happy, that means some kind of compromise has been found.
Yeah.
However, just bringing this back again to the issue of economic recovery, in terms of the internal market, again, the technology and the expertise within Europe will flow from some member states to another. Do you see this as having a net effect on the EU as a whole, or will this be to the benefit of a group of countries against another, for example?
I think the basic point, like I said, internal market is in the core, in the heart of EU, and that is the source of EU competitiveness. When we have functioning market, more competition internally, that makes our companies competitive also internationally. That's the whole point. And that's why I think that this internal market also in energy is not that different from other industries, except that we need those transmission lines or pipelines. We cannot transport electricity in a lorry or in a ferry. So internal market would bring competitiveness, competitive prices also in the energy sector. It's in that sense it's not different from the other sectors, where the internal market is considered by definition as something good. Imagine steel or other products, pulp and paper, and people take for granted that there is an internal market.
But with the internal market and with these EU-wide targets, there's been talk about carbon leakage and green energy carbon leakage as a counter argument, etc. Is this a real, in your opinion, is this coming from the industry and from the business side? Is this something, if the costs rise, would companies actually leave, take their production or their, for example, CO2 intensive activities somewhere else?
Energy price is one component in the costs of industries, which does not mean that it would not be important. So carbon leakage and the competitiveness effect of those industries who are really in the global competition is something that we will have to take seriously. And like I said earlier, last year the whole debate on energy and climate was about competitiveness and prices. So I think that there has been some attention has been put on that. Again, and also what I said earlier, if we want to meet climate change targets, if we want to have an emissions trading, we need to design it so that it's very efficient. And then if we need compensation, let's do it separately. Let's find ways to compensate those who are suffering because of the internal activities. But let's not mix these. Then it becomes very complicated system.
Okay, we've got a question from a Twitter user. Is the EU a leader in effective climate policy, or is it other places? Is it maybe the US or other places? How do you see this? Bit of a tricky question.
Yes, a bit of a tricky question. EU has been a pioneer in developing the emissions trading, and I think that the emissions trading is a very, very good measure. And there's been a lot of, and to my mind, unfair criticism against the emissions trading, and the main argument has been that it increases the costs in Europe. But whatever measure we agree in Europe would only affect EU. If we, and now I refer to tax, for example, if we had a carbon tax, First of all, in the EU, a tax is difficult because it's a competence of the member states. So most probably we would have 28 different taxes of different level, cover different activities, changing to different directions in different times. So that would be difficult. But also that would apply only to EU. And I believe that this kind of a market-based mechanism is more cost efficient and more predictable. Prices of CO2, this is something that we companies, we do every day, basically every hour, every minute. We are assessing what is the price of CO2, what is the price of electricity, what is the price of money, currency. We do that. But if we have a system that is very policy-driven, like taxes would be, it's difficult to anticipate when the governments decide to change taxes and to what
or when
direction.
the governments change.
Or when the government changes. So it's much more difficult to anticipate that and predict that, and it's impossible to hedge against.
Well, I mean, probably the ideal solution would be to extend these internal market mechanisms and solutions to also external markets.
Yeah.
But again, this has also proven difficult. I mean, we had, for example, the airline charges, and then China didn't. I mean, you know, put up quite a big fight and then ended up not participating in this. So, does the EU have the kind of the muscle and the position to try to enforce this, or instead of just leading by example, to actually, you know, bring the example to others?
I think that when we get another big bloc, be it US or China, then it would be having active climate policies that are somehow comparable to those that with the EU. Then it would become trade policy issue, and then the muscle would be there. EU alone, we cannot afford, especially these times, to start a trade war between US or with US or with China on the others, because there would be countermeasures.
And also it's a competitive.
It's a competitive issue.
It's a competitive world. Our policies may be to the advantage or to the disadvantage. But
for example, there has been a lot of discussion about the carbon tax. I understand the idea, I like the idea, but it's impossible for the EU to introduce such a tax alone. That's my opinion.
Okay. Well, I mean, it hasn't worked basically.
No, it hasn't. No.
So it hasn't. But I mean, it remains to be seen what 2015 brings and how much of a binding global agreement this will be. I mean, there was quite a lot of talk about ambitious targets, but there was also quite a lot of talk, for example, from Polish Ministry of Environment, for example, who have been saying that for the agreement to be effective, it has to create conditions to be inclusive, because nobody can be forced to sign up to this, as Kyoto, for example, showed. Well, it remains to be seen how big of a compromise there will be between binding and non-binding measures to involve as many countries as possible.
Yeah, and I think that, like I said, it's not going to be one paper that everybody signs. It's going to be a mosaic of different activities, and the more they are comparable and equal, the better.
So maybe just, I mean, we're approaching the end of our debate. So I was just maybe ask you about some of your forecasts and predictions as to, well, we've talked a bit about the EU and the global negotiations. So maybe we shouldn't come back to that, but maybe to the actual economic recovery and its correlation with these new targets. I mean, whether they will be adopted at the council meeting, that you know. We have to wait for March, but how do you see the next few years in terms of the economic recovery, for example?
If I start with what I think will happen with the package, I certainly hope that in March the European Council, the prime ministers and presidents who are meeting then and discussing about this package, that they would make some kind of a political commitment. And the reason why I say this is that because of the EU elections and change of the Commission and Paris meeting, it will take years to transpose these decisions into legislation.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's up in the air that what is going to be the 2030 target, and we are in year 2018, 2019 without really knowing what is going to happen after 2020, I think that is a bad solution. Therefore, I would like to see that there would be some kind of a political commitment fairly soon, and then the legislation would start follow from there.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the economic situation of Europe and your predictions and your forecasts?
Here again, I'm a little bit on the thin ice, but I certainly hope that the economic recovery, the signs that we are seeing, are going to grow, and that we are going into the better direction also in that regard.
Mm-hmm. So things are looking up?
It looks, at least what I can say, it looks less bad than it used to look a year ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that brings us to I think to the conclusion of our debate. We've had some questions from the followers and Twitter users. So I wanted to thank you very much for your time and your insight. Clearly, coming from a highly competitive market and from a global player, you've got information and views from different markets, and you've got a very informed opinion about the different things. So I wanted to thank you very much. Don't know if you have any kind of message or any kind of concluding remark you would like to put out there for the people who are following us and viewing us. Maybe just to sum up what we've touched on.
Maybe I can repeat that what I said, that I think that it's important to address the climate change, but it's also equally important to do it in an efficient way so that we are not creating unnecessary economic burden to anybody. And that's, I think, the yesterday's package is a step to a right direction in that regard. I think that enables the EU and the member states to make more cost-efficient energy and climate policy in the future, and that is very important.
Okay, so with that, I wanted to thank you very much for your time spent with us. I wanted to thank all of our viewers and followers who've been engaging with us through Twitter. Thank you very much for your time and for being here with us. Like we said at the beginning, the recording of this debate will be available on our website in a not too long a future. So if anybody has missed this or wanted to hear what our guests had to say, please feel free to do so. We will also be organizing 2 more debates in this format on EU climate policy related issues in February. We will be announcing this on Twitter and on our website in the next days and weeks. So stay tuned and come back with us. And from me, from the Climate for Growth campaign, again, thank you to our guest and thank you. And if you like to engage with us, please feel free to do so on our Twitter by contacting the campaign offices. We will also be organizing 2 stakeholder roundtable events in February, on the 13th of February in Berlin and on the 18th of February in Brussels. If you would wish to attend these, to participate, the programs will be up on our website today, and please feel free to register and to meet us personally at these events. So thank you very much, and have a nice day.